All right, guys. Couple things before we get into the work that I want to talk about today, the ideas I want to talk about today. I sent out an email this morning. I have opened up a review in Math Excel for this chapter. I want to kind of explain to you the approaches that I take with reviews. Okay. The first thing is that this will happen every chapter. Okay. Some chapters will even have multiple reviews. Okay. But they are only things that will help you. They could never hurt you. They can never hurt your grade or anything like that. There's 62 questions in it. And when you see that, you might think, well, that's a daunting challenge. That's difficult. Okay? And I don't disagree. That's probably going to be a lot of work. Okay? Sometimes there's 70 questions. Sometimes there's 80. I like to put as many as I can in there to help benefit you. Okay? Because if you're a person that struggles with, let's say, the midpoint ideas with the segments and the algebra that's involved in that, I like to put 6, 7 questions that target that in case you're a person that struggles on that. If you only see it one time, you might not have enough exposure to really get skilled at that and brush up on it and be able to perform on the test. But if you got 6 or 7 of them that are different that you can repeat and work through, I think that's going to help you practice a little bit more. Does that make sense? Okay. If you're a person that understands that stuff, awesome. You can either knock them out real quick or do 1, 2 of them and then go on to the next concept. Okay. What I do with those, because I want you to use them, because inside those 62 questions are probably 90% of the questions that you're going to see on the test. Okay. Some reviews, inside the review is the entire test. Okay. Because by what I'm limited to in regards to choosing questions for some of these tests, and the amount of questions they give you on a review, they're going to overlap. They're going to repeat something. Obviously, you'll probably get different numbers, but when you go through the test on Friday, you're going to say, yep, seen this one before, seen something like this before, yep, seen this before, seen this vocabulary before, we've done this. I don't want you to get to a test and things be new or be the first time you see those, okay? I do think there's benefit to things like that, but right now I don't want to do that. So you're going to see, if you go through the review, you're going to start seeing pretty much the entire test on Friday. Now some of you might say, well, that's not enough for me, not enough motivation for me to open that review, okay? So what I do is I give you half a point for every one you get right, okay? So there's 62 questions. If you go through and you do every one of them, you get every one of them right, which you should be able to do, because there's three chances on each question, and I give you 99 similar exercises. So if you can't get the right answer in 297 attempts, you're going to have, there's a bigger problem there, I think, okay? And again, if you're missing it 10, 11, 12 times, there's a disconnect between you and the information. Come see me, and I can work with you, and we can figure this stuff out. So hopefully you can gauge your understanding based on how many times you have to do the problem and get it right. But you should be able to obtain those points. Okay? So if you do all 62 of them, you get all 62 of them right, I will give you a 31 out of 31 in progress book. Okay? It'll be a free homework assignment, which doesn't really matter whether it's a homework, a test, or a quiz. All the points are weighted the same. So it's like getting a 31 out of 31 on a test, or a 31 out of 31 on a quiz, or something like that. Does that make sense? Okay? Let's say that you didn't have time to do all 62, or maybe you're a person that says, I understand what's going on. I'm just going to go through and do 2 of the segment addition ones, and just make sure that I feel comfortable. Do 2 of the angle additions, feel comfortable. Don't do all 7 of them in both sections. That's fine. But then you're not going to get 31 out of 31. You might answer, let's say, 40 of the questions. You got 40 of them right. I'll give you a 20 out of 20. Is that all right? It's inevitable. Every year it happens. I get somebody that does 4 questions, gets 2 of them right. I give them a 1 out of 1. Okay? You cannot get anything less than 100% on the optional reviews. But understand, a 2 out of 2 or a 10 out of 10, is that as beneficial as a 31 out of 31? No. That extra 31 out of 31, those extra 20 points or whatever, are going to cushion your grade, and you can fall a little bit more on a test or a quiz than maybe the person that got a 1 out of 1 or a 2 out of 2. Does that make sense? Okay. And right now, my hopes are that a lot of us are kind of feeling comfortable with what we're talking about, and that we're really not overly concerned about the test on Friday. But I've taught this class for 12 years. I know the difficulties that you're going to run into later on. If you can accrue points now, that allows you to have a little bit of leeway later on when something gets more difficult in regards to your grade, right? I'm not saying that, I'm accruing these points now and then later on I can just tank a test. You can't do that because it's going to ultimately damage your score and your progress through the course. But it's there to kind of help you so you don't fall dramatically. Does that make sense? But if you're not going to accrue those points now, those won't be there later on, okay? I try to do this for every chapter. Like I said, there might be sometimes multiple ones, and they're optional, okay? You don't have to do any. You don't want to do any of it, don't do any of it. That's fine, okay? But when your parent calls me and asks me, why is Johnny getting 62% in my class? And I can say, well, if they do the optional reviews, they could potentially have a 71 in this class. Maybe they do the retake test, they could probably have an 81 in the class, and so we're at 62, it could be an 81. That's going to probably upset parents, right? Okay, because now they're just thinking that, well, my student's not doing the things that they need to be doing. So please, please, please use those to benefit you. Guys, anybody have questions on that? All right, I don't put those in right away in the progress book. So you're going to do those. Are going to be due Friday morning 8:15. They're open now. You can do them anytime you want to. They close on Friday morning 8:15. They'll always close the test date at the beginning of school. And we might have 3 of those in 9 weeks, and every one of you is probably going to have a different score on that. Okay, so I don't want to go in and create an assignment. That's just the only way I can do it is to create an assignment for 20 people because they're all going to have different totals. Does that make sense? So there might be a 19 out of 19, there might be a 12 out of 12, there might be a 13 out of 13, there might be a 21 out of 21. I can only create each one of those assignments individually and then exclude everybody except for you from that assignment. I don't want to do that for this chapter and then for chapter 2 and then for chapter 3 because that would essentially be like 300 extra assignments I have to create. So what I do is I wait to the end of the 9 weeks. I take all of the optional reviews that we've done, I merge them in an Excel sheet. Okay, so instead of 3 30-point assignments, now it's maybe 1 90-point assignment, and now I go through and I make maybe 60 separate assignments there instead of making 180 separate assignments. Does that make sense to everybody? So you're not going to see these impact your grade until the last day of the 9 weeks. So if your person says, I'm right now, I'm sitting at 78%, it's the last day of the 9 weeks, you probably got an 80% you've been doing the optional reviews. Okay? In the past, this has, depending on how much of it you do in your current grade, it will jump people 6-7% points. Okay? So it'll take you from a 75 to an 82 or something like that. Now the higher if I'm getting a 91 in this class and I'm doing all of them, it might only jump me to a 92. But it doesn't matter anyways, right? 91, 92, that's the same thing. But a lot of times this is going to get people over that bubble. Another thing I like to do, if you're a person, you're getting an 89.3 in this class for 9 weeks, I would love to give you a 90. Okay? So I go in, if there was 80 optional review points that you could have obtained, but you only did 10 of them, I'm not going to round you up. Okay? I shown it anyways, but an 89.3, you're not doing those extra things, those extra points that are there. Now, if you got an 89.3, you've done every single optional review, you've done every single question on those optional reviews, I'm giving you a 90 because I think you've earned that. You've done the work. Does that make sense? Okay. So those little things are kind of the way I approach the optional review thing. All right. There will be times in classes that I give you time to work on those. We might have a little bit of time tomorrow depending on how many questions you ask tomorrow. If we have 10-15 minutes at the end, I'm going to ask you to work on that so to kind of force you to be a person that wouldn't look at it at home. Maybe you can do 10 of them in class and at least get a 5 out of 5. Okay. But they're buffer points. I think they're going to be beneficial to you. Shayla, do you have a question?
Will they affect, like if you don't do like all the homework assignments, you can't do the retake?
No, so if you don't, so on Friday when we take the test, the retake will probably be the following Friday. And Shayla's saying obviously if we miss a homework assignment or it's incomplete, we're not eligible to do the retake. The optional review is not part of that. So it will not hurt you in regards to a retake if you don't do the optional. But I think there are so many beneficial aspects of doing an optional review that it's kind of silly not to do it, okay? Especially if you've got the time. Is that okay with everybody? Okay, if you got questions on that, you can refer to your email or you can come talk to me individually, and we can discuss those questions at that time. I also want to talk to you about a couple of things in regards to preparing for the test. Tomorrow we'll talk specifically about what is on the test and how many questions and all that kind of stuff. But I want to, if you go to the quiz test worksheet review videos, I have put up the 1-2, 1-3 quiz. I'm sorry for being late, but it is up there. I would look at that. There's vocabulary, there's postulate questions in there that will undoubtedly be on the chapter test. Okay, so there's quite a few questions in that quiz that are going to repeat themselves in the test. So use that as a resource to study from. There is a worksheet 1-4 that I haven't put up yet, annual edition. I'll put that up this evening or tomorrow morning, so you can use that again to help you prepare. When you're doing the optional reviews, I know there's a lot of stuff here I'm trying to just make sure that we're aware of. If I preview this with you, hopefully you've seen this and you understand this or you've made a connection. But if I look at, let's say, well, I'm in, this is the home, we're not the optional review, it doesn't matter, but let's see here, let's go to, alright, you see where this says 1.5 right there? Okay? If you're in the optional review, it's for the whole chapter, so there's going to be 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5. If you're struggling on that type of question and you need to find out the way to do it, you need to find the notes, find the videos that we've correlated to those notes that we've done in class, look at that number and then go back to my website and say, okay, this question was out of 1.5, go back to the website, find 1.5's videos, find those notes, and now it's kind of an index for me. Does that make sense? Now, if there's a star between there, in front of that, like you saw at the beginning, a lot of these questions have stars in front of them. That asterisk is telling me that this came from a different textbook. Okay? We haven't talked about 1.6 yet, but this idea, I think, is for us is 1.5, but in another textbook it was 1.6. Does that make sense? So if there's a star there, maybe you won't be able to do that. You could probably go and say, okay, well, it's probably in the ballpark of 1.6, so look at 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, that type of thing. That should be a big strategy to help you narrow in on where to look for help in some of the questions you're doing in the review if you struggle with them. Another thing that I think is beneficial to you, because there is going to be vocabulary on every test. You know, I might give you, you're going to open the test and you might see, well, that's 45 questions. I'm going to do 45 questions in 45 minutes. A bulk of those will be vocabulary or postulate type questions where you're reading and you're answering pretty quickly. And maybe you can do 4 or 5 of those questions within a minute. My view is vocabulary, if I don't know it, I probably don't want to sit there and just try to mull over it for minutes and minutes and minutes, right? If I don't know it, I skip and go to the next one, and then I'll come back to it later. Maybe something else in the test will trigger an answer for me and go back and answer it that way. Don't spend a whole lot of time trying to sit and decipher vocabulary words. If you don't know it, move on to the next one. But I know some of us are going to struggle with knowing our vocabulary words. So if you click on chapter 1, and if you scroll all the way to the bottom, these 2 links right here will take you to Quizlets that I've made for you. Okay? And obviously you can do whatever you want to do your flashcards, whatever. I prefer to do the test because this is the way that you're going to answer these questions in tests, whether they're fill in the blank or matching or something like that. And you can go through and you can practice your vocabulary. Okay? And in my opinion, okay, if I was concerned about this, a lot of your tests, 50% of them are probably vocabulary or postulates. Okay? Hopefully that should be, you should then start the test with 50% right. So I would go through and I would do these Quizlets until I can answer every one of those questions right. Alright? So when I get to the test, I've got a bulk of that test done already. Okay? And I just got to start picking the right answer. Is that okay with everybody? I've also, especially because some of these chapters are heavily inundated, especially early on with postulates and theorems. Click the next link, it takes you to flashcards of our postulates. 32 points is exactly 1 line. Now, it's not really a flashcard because the other side just says postulate. Okay? But I wanted to give you somewhere where all of your postulates, all your key phrases and rules were established and written together. So on this one, again, on the back side it just says postulate. So it kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense maybe to do the test or do the other options that they have within Quizlet other than just looking at pieces of flashcards. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. But you'll need to know those things. You need to be able to be versed in those and understand what they say and what they don't say for your test. All right. Questions. I know there's a lot. Okay, but I just want to make sure that we're all able to find the things that are going to, I think, benefit you in the long run in regards to preparing for the test. Okay? Tomorrow we'll talk about the components of the test, and then hopefully that's kind of the last time we have to do this, because chapter 2, everything will be set up the same way. You'll have flashcards, you'll have postulate flashcards, you'll have an optional review, all that kind of stuff, and then it will just become the norm. It'll be what we do every chapter. Okay? I didn't see too many issues with you guys' homework, other than I think question like 8, and it was a recognition type question. Let me pull that up. Nope, not 8. There we go. A handful of us missed it, so I want to make sure that we're all on the same page with it. It says, can you make the conclusion that angle FGH is congruent to angle FJH? Okay. Now, depending on, and I'll do a couple of these versions, you might have different, these things might be interchanged with something else that comes from over here. So we'll go through and see if there's a couple different problems here that we're getting. So can I say FGH? So I'm going to trace out FGH. So it's that angle right there. Okay. Is that congruent to FJH? FJH, that angle right there. Do I have enough notation in my picture to determine that? Are there markings in there that shows me that those angles are congruent? Yeah. Okay. So yes, I can make that conclusion that they are indeed congruent. Okay. Now I'm going to click that button and see if I get a different question. Now it says JFH, JFH. So I'll highlight that one. So now we're looking at that red angle. And GFH is that blue angle. So if I visualize those and I look at the notation, is there anything up there that tells me through the diagram, through the information, that those are congruent? No. Okay, there's no markings up there in those angles, right? So they're not congruent. Here's where this class is going to go, though. Because eventually we will say that those are congruent. Because eventually we recognize that triangle is isosceles. Okay? And when we do this, okay, when we do a little bit of work here with that triangle and that line F to H, okay, if there's a key idea or key concept happening with that line FH, that ray FH, then absolutely those two angles will be congruent. So eventually we will be able to make a concerted decision. Yes, they're congruent, no, they're not. Based off of other things other than the markings. Does that make sense? Okay. Here, we don't know enough yet to say that. So right now our argument is no, I cannot make the conclusion that they're congruent. Does that mean they're incongruent? No. Okay. It just means that I cannot say that they're congruent. Okay. That's kind of the idea. You show up on the first day. I can't say you're an A student. Okay. I don't know anything about you, right? Okay. But just because I can't say you're an A student doesn't mean that you're a B student or you're a C or D student, right? I just don't know enough yet. And in that picture, you don't know enough yet to make a valid conclusion. So keep that in mind as you're seeing that type of stuff. It's important. Not a whole lot of math there, but it's more of how we're interpreting diagrams and that kind of stuff, how we're working our way through the class. It's going to be important for the rest of the year. Okay? I want to get into a little bit of, and we can talk about questions you might have on that later at the end of class, but I want to get into some examples that relate back to our rules in regards to pairs of angles. And there is one rule so far that we haven't talked about, and we won't define it until, I think it's chapter 2, maybe even chapter 3, about vertical angles. Okay? I might have shown you guys this earlier in the week. I'm not sure. I showed one class or two classes, but I didn't show everybody. So let me see here real quick. Intersect those. I'm going to ask this thing to find some angle measurements. All right, so we're looking at those green angles, right? Would you guys agree those green angles are vertical to one another? You know, this one here, I believe, was this alpha, okay, and the one on the right is that beta. They're the same, right? They're vertical angles, correct? So vertical angles in this situation, they have the same amount, the same value. If I move it and I get different vertical angles, but what is still the relationship that you see between those two angles? Still the same measurement? It's a new measurement, but they're still equal to one another, correct? No matter how I construct my vertical angles, no matter how I draw them, they're always going to be congruent to one another. Is that okay with everybody? All right. So that's a fact. It's actually a postulate. We can't prove it yet, okay, or ever. But vertical angles are congruent. Vertical angles are congruent. And I think it's something that we can talk about now, even though the class has, the textbook hasn't described it yet. I think it's an idea or concept that we can easily visually see and deal with. So it's important for some of the questions I'm going to ask you about today. But these are some questions that I think, one, are going to practice our understanding of our angle relationships, the pairs of angles that we've been talking about, but at the same time, kind of give you an idea of how you might come across questions throughout this course. Okay? First thing I want to tell you is that when you are working with questions in this course, there's probably not a whole lot of structure in regards to, I got to do this step first, this step second, this step third. There will be some of that, but a lot of times you might be able to kind of move in and out your steps, okay, and replace them. A lot of times people say, well, I'm looking at this problem and I want to find A first. So I target and I try to look at A, and I'm only looking at A and the parts around it. And if I do that, in this problem, there's absolutely no way that I can find A without having to find something else first. Does that make sense? And that something else that I have to find isn't B or C. It's not something that they're asking about. It's some other thing in this picture that doesn't actually physically target the three questions I'm being asked about. Does that make sense, everybody? You're going to have to look at your picture and you have to kind of decipher and write down everything that you know to be true. Okay? So when I look at this, and I'm going to kind of just try to guide us in the right direction, at least in this first one. I'm going to start where I know a lot of information, a lot of useful information. And the only information I know right now is that 112. Okay? What does that tell me? If I look at that 112, how does that angle right there relate to this angle up here? What kind of angles are they to one another? They're vertical. Okay? And what did we just say about vertical angles? They have what relationship to one another? Congruent. So they have the same measurement. So if this one's 112, then this one here also has to be 112, right? Okay? So that's the idea. That didn't give me A, it didn't give me B, it didn't give me C, but it's a component of the problem that I need in order to eventually get to those things. Okay? And that's the way you got to kind of start thinking. And it's a little bit different way of thinking than what you've done in maybe algebra, where you could say, well, I can target X right away in this problem. Okay? Maybe you can, maybe you can't. In this case, you can't. You cannot target A right away. If that's 112, what does this notation here mean in regards to that notation? They're congruent. Okay, so can I take that 112 and transfer it here? Yeah. Now, you've moved some things around. You've transferred some values that you know absolutely are true based off of the vertical angle idea and then the idea of how we deal with notation of congruent angles. And now you should be able to see what some values are here. Okay? And you can find A first now, or you can find B, you can find C. There's enough information to find any one of those things in any order that you want to. If that's 112, is there another angle up there that's going to be 112? What angle? B. Okay, why? Because they're vertical, okay? Most of the time I'm going to ask you, you make that decision, you make an argument that I know that angle B is 112. I'm going to ask you then why, okay? So be ready for this. If that's 112, because it's vertical to the other 112 that was already defined. So now what is A? Any ideas on what A could be? 68. Okay, so why is Why is A 68 degrees?
Because we want 12 and A would make a straight line.
Okay, so which 112 are you talking about?
The one that is vertical to B.
Okay, so you're talking about this one. So you're saying that angle right there and that angle right there, they form that straight line, right? Okay? So because they form that straight line, they're a linear pair, right? By definition, there are two adjacent angles that form a straight angle. They're a linear pair. We said linear pairs are supplementary, right? Supplementary means they have 180, right? You know 1 of 112. Subtract that from 180, you get 68, correct? 100% right. Is there anybody that thought that should be 68 because that angle there and that angle there are a linear pair? Yeah, so that's a second reason why that's 68. Okay? Now it's the same logic. We still have linear pairs. You're going to know one of them, 112, so that one's going to be 68. But it's looking at two different angles, a different relationship that validates the 68. I should not find this to be 68, looking at these top two angles, and then looking at these two angles here, it'd be something different than 68. They should validate each other. They should verify each other, back each other up. Okay? What's angle C going to be?
68.
68. Why?
Because it's vertical angle.
Absolutely. It's vertical. Let's see here. It's vertical right there with that angle of 68, correct? Is there another reason why it's 68? Yeah, it's supplementary with that 112 right there, right? Is there a third reason that it's 68 and that it's, it's supplementary with that 112, correct? So you got three reasons there why that angle might be 68. But each of those reasons should not contradict another one. Does that make sense? I should be able to find that to be 68 all three ways, and it'd be true each way. Okay? I shouldn't be able to find 68 one way, 62 another way, and 63 another way. Okay? All three techniques, all three procedures should yield the same result. Okay? Is that all right with everybody? And that's kind of the crux of this course. Well, the problem with this course sometimes is the way I see it visually might be different than the way you see it. The way I explain it might be a little bit different than the way you saw it in your homework or something like that. So if that's the case and you're not picking up on the way that I see it, let me know. We can talk about the way you saw it. Okay? Or if I know there's multiple ways somebody could look at something. All right? I might do the problem 3, 4, 5 different ways. Okay? And that might bore you, but especially if you saw it one way and you knew you could get the answer. But I think seeing the 3, 4, 5 different ways will help you recognize on other problems when your technique doesn't work, how can I then maybe use something else that we've already discussed a different way. Now we look at this one, okay? Now this one, how many angles do you have in a pair? You have 2. When we talk about supplementary angles, it has to be 2 angles. When we talk about linear pairs, it has to be 2 angles. Right here, if we look at this, we've got a line. We've got a line here that is a straight angle, correct? That purple line. How many degrees should there be in that straight angle? 180, okay? It's the same conclusion that we get when we say 2 angles are supplementary. It's the same conclusion we get when we say 2 angles are a linear pair. Their sum gives me 180, okay? But I can't say that about these 3 angles. I can't say those 3 angles are a linear pair because they're not a pair, they're a triplet, okay? I can't say that they're supplementary because they're not a pair, they're a triplet, right? But do they have the same conclusion that if I were to add that one, and that one, I should still get 180? All right, so we should be able to do what with the 15 and the 38 to get A? Yeah, subtract both those from 180. If you want to add them together and then subtract from 180, that's fine. If you want to subtract them both individually from 180, that's fine as well. But that should give you your value there. All right. We can't say, when I ask you why, you can't say because they're a linear pair. You can't say because they're supplementary. The only reason why is because now the angle addition postulate says that when I have those 3 angles added together and they give me that straight line, that straight angle, I then know that they're going to add 180. Okay? So the logic behind why in this question is a little bit different than the other ones. Still same conclusion, still dealing with the 180. The reason of why is a little different. And that's actually a style of question or an idea that is going to be consistent for the rest of the year, where we've got 3 things up there, right? And we've got a total. We know the total is 180. If I give you 2 of the 3 things, you should be able to find the last remaining one, right? If I give you a total, and I'm telling you that 7 things make up that total, 7 objects add up to give me this total, and I give you 6 of those objects, can you use subtraction to find the 7th one? Alright? So however many objects I give you, as long as I give you a total, and I ask you for 1 remaining object, you should be able to always use subtraction to do that. Okay? And that's gonna happen all the time throughout the course. Alright, let's do this one. A lot of stuff going on here, a lot of different approaches you can use in this one. I started looking at those lines. I want to just highlight maybe 2 of them. And I don't know which 2 to choose. And that's the thing here, guys. When you're dealing with these processes, this picture is different than question 2, right? It's different than question 1. That's what happens in this course is, you know, there's a concept. We're trying to target angle pairs, maybe vertical angles, maybe you know, linear pairs and that kind of stuff. But the pictures are different. The way they organize the information is different from question to question. Or if you contrast that to what you did in algebra, if I'm solving or factoring like x squared plus 4x plus 4 on question 1, and on question 2 I'm probably factoring x squared plus 6x plus 9. And on question 3 I'm probably factoring x squared plus 12x plus 18 or something like that. Does that make sense? I'm doing the same thing with the same style of picture or same style of equation every time in algebra. In geometry, the pictures change, the process changes, the approach changes. Okay? And that's what forces us to say there's not going to be one exact way of doing every single style of problem. Okay? When I look at this, I see the 40 and the 70. They're kind of jumping off the page at me. Okay? Because they're things that I know concrete values for. The other thing that's kind of jumping off the page at me are these congruencies. Okay? Now, if I look at those congruencies, are those vertical angles? No. Okay? Because they're not made by the same lines, right? That line makes this angle up top, but it doesn't make this one here, right? Okay? That one's a line that makes both, but I would need this portion over here. So it's not, that one there and that one are not vertical. But is this one here and C, are they vertical? All right. So could I do this? Could I put markings in C that there should be 2 marks there? And that just tells me that angle C is congruent to any other angle if there has 2 marks in it. Okay. I don't have a numerical value for C yet, but that's fine. And that's just the approach that I took. I don't even know if you need to do that right away. Okay? Maybe some of you saw that angle there and that angle there. Would you guys agree that those are vertical? So what would B end up being? Yeah, you might jump straight to saying that B is 40 degrees. Okay? My suggestion to you in problems like this is not to force yourself in the way that they've used the alphabet here to label things, say that I have to find A first. Because if I focus on A and I just try to find A first, there's really nothing there. I can't find A first. Okay? I got to do some extra work if I want to bring A out numerically. Okay? So I just go through my picture. I don't even worry about what they're asking. I go through my picture and I start writing stuff down that I know. Okay? Based off our postulates and our definitions. Would you guys make the argument that maybe this angle here and that angle there are also vertical? Okay, so can I put 2 marks in that angle? Is that okay with everyone? What are you going to say about 70 and D? They're vertical. Okay. So now I've gone through, I've made all my markers. I think I've addressed all my relationships for the most part. There's a couple up there that maybe we haven't talked about, but they're going to allow, the ones we haven't talked about are going to allow me to solve for A and C. But here's the thing. If I find A, do I automatically find C? I don't know what A is going to be. Let's say A ends up being 30 degrees. It has 2 marks in it, right? So doesn't everything else that has 2 marks in it end up being 30 degrees as well? So that's the nice thing about attacking the picture and writing down the things that I know, because a lot of times I'll develop those relationships, those congruencies, and when I find one solution, that might effectively find me 3, 4, 5 other solutions right away. Okay. So when we go through this, we start thinking. Any ideas on what I could do to solve for A, Shayla?
Solve for A. Well, what I did is I knew that like the one that's going straight down the middle, the line that's going straight down the middle, that is 180.
This one here?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I subtracted 110 from 180.
Okay. So you got your 110 from that one and that one together. So does everybody see that she's saying that this grouping of angles should total 180, right? She's saying take the 70 away, take the 40 away. So that's 110 that you've taken away, right?
Yeah.
So it leaves you with 70, correct? Now what?
And since I know that A and then the one that is right above that, they are congruent, I divided it by 2.
Okay. So that angle there and that angle there are congruent, right? We now know that based on her procedure that they should total 70, but if they're the same, they have to be 70 divided by 2 each, right? So 35. So A is 35. So what's C going to be? 35. Now, Matt, you had your hand up.
Yeah, it wasn't. I was thinking like B and A were, they made a straight line, so I was thinking it'd be like 110, but I just didn't divide it, so.
Okay, so you went looking at that straight line?
Yeah.
Okay. So this would have been 70. Here's the 40. She's saying that's 110 again, right? Okay. So she's taking the 180, remove the 110, so she's still got 70 degrees left over for these 2 angles. And then again, using the same approach then, because they got to be the same, you divide that out by 2, right? Ultimately, the algebra is the same, but visually, you guys use 2 different approaches, right? There's other approaches we could use. We could maybe use that one there, that line. Okay, still got the 180, still the same real algebra that we're dealing, but using different components to come up with the argument. Somebody in the last class said, let's set up an algebraic equation, which is really what we did as you walked me through that process. But they did this. They said, I know that that's 70 and that's 40. And I know that these 2 things are congruent. But those things are unknown, right? I do not know what that measurement is of A. So I said, let that be my variable. If that's A, what is this? This is like, say, 8 degrees. How many degrees would this be? It'd be 8 degrees, wouldn't it? Okay? So now they said, well, angle addition says 8 degrees plus 8 degrees. So this angle here plus that one there plus 40 plus 70 should equal 180. Now here's the logic why this is the exact same thing you did. Is that 110? Did you have to subtract 110 from 180? So you got 2 A's here is equal to 70 when you do that subtraction. Did you then say, okay, well those 2 things have to be the same, so I divide 70 by 2? Is that what's going to happen there when I solve for A? Alright. So you went, and that's the thing, people think, well I did something different. I didn't do algebra. Yes you did. You just didn't write it down like an algebraic equation, but in your mind you're doing the algebra. You're finding unknown values using your order of operations. Okay? A lot of times when we go through things in class, people say, I didn't do it that way. If we sit down and think and break down their process, they absolutely probably did it that way. Okay? When we look at this one, zoom in here. This one's kind of messy, but I want to show it because there's some overlap here I think that is useful to us. If we see right here that angle, would you guys agree that the notation there is that angle is the right angle? So that's 90 degrees. Would you agree that angle is also a right angle? So that's 90 degrees. Okay? If this portion of the red one is 70, what's this little tiny sliver going to be? That's going to be 20, okay? That's the idea of complementary angles, right? If I give you one complement, you can give me the other. So if these blue angles then are complementary, and this one's 20, what's B? 70 as well. Okay? Now let's do something. Just working our way through. And You know, you can find right now, I think you can go through and you can find probably what D is. Or you can find C next, or you can find E next. I think you've got enough information to really find those independently, meaning that C's result doesn't impact E, E's result doesn't impact D as we work through. But can you see any other values up there that you might know to be true? Shayla?
Where exactly is the right angle? The other right angle?
The red one? Or the blue
is
one?
it like? I'm confused on where it actually is.
It is confusing at the beginning. It's confusing because that little sliver is overlapping. So this here and that there are perpendicular. So that's one right angle.
Okay.
And then your other one is
Okay, I see.
here. Oh, that's terrible. That one and that one. But if that's 20, you guys told me that this is 70. Anybody just throw out what you think some other angle up there is? Anybody know what C, D, or E would be?
20.
20 for which one?
C.
Absolutely. Okay. How'd you do that?
I got B and C are right angle.
Okay, so you said this one here and that one there were creating a right angle? Okay, that's great. That's fun. Because look at this, guys. If that's excuse me, if we look here, that's a straight angle, right? We said that this is 90. So doesn't it mean that this whole thing here also has to be 90? Even though there's not notation there, right? We can decipher that. We can validate that and convince ourselves that that's true. So that B was 70, so then we get C to be 20. That's absolutely right. Did anybody do this and say, well, that's 70, that's 20, so there's 90, there's 70 more, so that's 160, and I know I get this straight angle of 180, so if I got 160 so far, then 160 from 180 should be 20, right? Really, ultimately the same approaches, but maybe dealing with some different numbers in regards to targeting that 20. Good observation there. Anybody have another?
E is 110.
E is 110. How'd you get that?
Well, since I know D and then 70, they're vertical,
Okay.
and I know that makes a straight line, D and E do,
Okay.
does, and so I got my match.
All right. So she's actually using two ideas here. She first ultimately found what D was because it's vertical with this 70, right? And then she said, well, if that's the case, and I know that this straight angle is 180, so then the supplement of 70 is 110. Did anybody see this? If I look at E, is that vertical? Oh, that's terrible. Is that vertical with that angle right there? And if I've got 20 plus 70 plus 20, that's 110, so it's vertical, and gives me 110 there. You could have said, well, I know this one's 70 right off the bat. Don't even address vertical angles. I get that straight line right there. I get that set of linear pairs, so that's got to be 110. There's a lot of different ways, right? A lot of different approaches to get the same answer. And that's what I think it's nice about math. It's awesome, I think, about this class. But all at the same time, it's what stinks real bad about the class. It's because I might see it only one way. You might see it 2, 3 different ways. Okay? And if I show it the one way that I see it, that might not be one of your 2 or 3 ways that you see it. Does that make sense? So it's something that we have to have discussion about. We have to talk about it. We have to openly say, okay, I'm not sure what's going on, but this is what I think. Okay? Never be afraid to be wrong in here. Okay? Make sure that you're asking those questions, saying, I did it this way. Is that okay? Can I view it this way? Those types of things. Okay? I do want to try to show you and get you to explain just kind of the theoretical or philosophical way of doing these problems. Do not try to train yourself and say, I've got to find this variable first, or I've got to start doing this first. I think the safest thing for you guys when you're doing problems is start where you know the most information. Start where you know numbers, okay, where they give you quantities or something like that. Start where they're identifying expressions for angles, and then see where that leads you. But don't try to force yourself like you did in Algebra 1. I can solve for X first, then I can solve for Y, and then I can solve for Z or something like that, because that's going to be a problem in here, okay? And that ultimately turns out to be a problem for the rest of your classes in math.